Good morning. I am Iqbal Garawal, Technical Support Manager here at CADpoint. Thank you for joining us today for this live webinar, Top 10 Tips for AEC Collection, Getting Started with BIM Interoperability Tools in Revit. So to give you some background about CADpoint, we're based in Crowthorne, Berkshire. We're a gold partner for Autodesk software. We have a team of experts ready to assist you in all aspects of design. We're also partners with some of the most trusted hardware manufacturers in the industry, including HP, NVIDIA, etc. As well as software, our team can also offer introductory training for new customers and advanced courses for experienced users to help you get more from your software. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you now on to Jonathan. Thanks, Jonathan.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for that introduction. Today, I'm going to present getting started with BIM interoperability tools. My name is Jonathan Reinhardt. I have a background in architectural technology, working as an architectural technologist and master's degree in BIM management. I've also worked in managing BIM in Dublin and across the UK and Ireland as well. I've also worked on projects and I've about 15 years experience in the architectural and building industry. So today, to kick off, what we're going to cover, we're going to dive into the Autodesk BIM interoperability tools, and these are in fact a add-in that comes pre-installed with all the latest versions of Revit, and it is in fact a toolbar found within Revit. So within this BIM interoperability tools, you've got three different sections. So you've got Classification Manager, the left-hand side, you've got the Model Checker, and then you've got the Cobie extension. And these three do distinctly different things, but they do complement each other at certain aspects, depending what you want to do. You don't necessarily have to use all of them by any means. So the Autodesk Classification Manager, this allows you to assign classifications such as Uniclass to multiple elements in a single click, and it allows you to quickly apply that data from multiple classification systems as well, including Omniclass, Uniclass, and all different types of formats as well to your elements. The Autodesk Model Checker for Revit, this allows you to check your BIM model standards by automatically checking your Revit models based on a set of BIM requirements and generate then a compliance report. And then finally, you have the Autodesk Cobie extension for Revit. So the Cobie data from your Revit model, this tool allows you to set up your Revit models to capture that Cobie data and then export it to a Cobie compliant data sheet, which is generally used for the handover of a BIM project. So the first thing to know about using the BIM interoperability tools is understanding what classification is. So classification, you will find this either specified in your contract documents with your client, or you may have some sort of internal classification system. So to explain that in a bit more detail, so if you're, for example, working on a BIM compliant project using the ISO 19650 Part 2 document, in this national annex in the back of the document, which can vary by country, but in the UK version, under 4.4, classification of information within information containers, i.e. files or Revit models, should be in accordance with Uniclass 2015, and this is based on the ISO 12006 Part 2 and Part 3 as well from 2018. So that's just an example of where classification is used, and Uniclass is just a form of classification. There are other ones such as Omniclass and other types of format across Europe, across the US, and globally as well. But for this example, we're going to look at the Uniclass example. So that's just understanding where maybe you might find that you are required to provide classification on a project. So this can be a table, a window, a door. Each of these objects are named in a structured way based on the Uniclass classification. So another example of where you might be requested for this is if you are using something like the RIBA digital plan of work. So if you go to the design responsibility matrix within this template, which is downloadable from the RIBA website, you will see on the left hand side the aspect of the design, and there is a classification code here on the left under SS And all of these different elements just in here as examples have different codes. So we've got communication systems have an SS75, electrical systems, ventilation systems, heat cooling systems, and so on and so forth. And there are also wall systems here as well. So if I just scroll up here, signage and fittings, damp proofing, so under, there we are, ceilings. So roof, floor and paving or raised floor systems, we can see it's got an SS_30 2070. And this is what will be applied to codes and parameters that are raised floor systems within your Revit project. To this in more detail, if I in fact click or link, it will bring me to raised floor systems. If I go to level of information, and just to explain this to you in a bit more detail, under category at LOI 6, it requires a classification code. So therefore, at LOI 6 in a raised access floor, there will be a parameter in your Revit that will be carrying that Uni Class 2015. So that's the first thing, is just to familiarize yourself with, first off, what classification are you being asked for, and secondly, familiarize yourself with what your local standards are, if it's UK, if it's Uni-class, or if it's Omni-class as well. So the next tip I want to show you is actually how do you assign classification codes to different objects in projects. So if I was to select this window, for example, I can select this window, go to edit type, and down the bottom here, it shows me what the Uni-class parameters are. Now, I've already assigned these particular Uni-class codes, but once you run the setup wizard, it automatically creates these parameters here, which is fairly straightforward. I'm not going to explain that in great detail. You just go to setup, you choose which Uni-class database you want to use. In this case, Uni-class 2015, and these are preloaded. You can create your own as well, and there are a couple of other preloaded ones here as well. So I'm just going to hit finish on that. That creates the parameters then, or while you're pulling the database information from. So if I was to click on this wall, for example, go to edit type, and we can see the Uni-class codes down here are completely empty. So therefore, this wall has not been classified in line with the Uni-class classification system. But the parameters are there under type. Now, if I want to assign the parameter to this, I simply click that wall, go to BIM Interoperability Tools, just go to Assign, scroll down to my Uni-class tables under SS. So we've got Panel Wall Structure System. So we call it Panel Wall Structure System. Scroll down just to where that setting or that option is. And you can see we've got a lot of different wall and roof systems in here. We've got roof system there, so wall lining system, window systems, wall cladding systems, board cladding system, and just to name that accordingly. So I'm just going to choose a profile sheet cladding system, because that's what we're going to assume it is, metal profile sheet. Just hit assign on that, hit close. Now when I go back into the parameters of this, you can see that it's applying the SS number and the description, which is metal profile sheet cladding system. And the same goes for if you were to apply EF's numbers, the PR numbers as well, and anything else that is relevant to that also. So the same goes if I select this railings, for example, select that particular railings. I can see the parameters are there and they're empty. I can then go into my BIM interoperability tools, again, go to assign, and just scroll down maybe where I might find railings. I will type in railings here as well. So all I have to do then is browse. There was in fact a railing system there. So as long as that is a relevant one, and again, if you're working on a BIM compliant project, you can check back to either your BIM execution plan or back to your design responsibility matrix. Post rail and board fence system, metal post rail fencing system, and you can choose the relevant one there as well. That one, for example, hit close, go into edit type, and again, you can see the post and rail fencing systems applied to there, and the SS number within there. The next tip I'm going to give you here on the classification system is how to build a classification schedule. So if you're familiar with Revit, or if you're not, you're able to build something called schedules and quantities. And within these schedules and quantities, you can, I suppose, pull up different Revit parameters that have been populated in your Revit objects and families. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to select my windows. I can also pull up doors if I want. We'll just go Windows because I know I've applied a classification. And you'll see here under schedule properties, you're able to apply the different classification systems parameters that have been applied in the type parameters of your particular objects or whatever particular parameters are relevant. So I'm going to send all these across as well as family type because I want to be able to associate it with the family and type, the uni-class description as well. So I'm just going to hit OK on that. That simply creates a Revit schedule, just a tabled system of all of your family and type. So it tells you exactly what object here. It tells you the classification uni-class description that has been selected using the BIM interoperability tools, and then the uni-class classification code has been applied here. Now, what we can also see from this, and the purpose of creating a schedule, is that you're able to see what codes have not been applied to certain objects. So this skylight, for example, I can hit highlight in model. That will then bring me to that particular model, which is this one. I know now that I can go into BIM interoperability tools, assign the classification code based on whatever the relevant search is or the relevant classification is for this particular window. You can check back to your digital plan of work for that. And the same applies to any objects that have not had a classification code applied to them. So that just helps you find objects that maybe haven't been classified yet before you issue your model for publishing to the client or even to your common data environment as well. The next tip that I want to show you using Classification Manager is how to assign keyboard shortcuts to make your classification workflows just a bit faster, a bit more efficient. We can see there that when you select an object, you go to BIM Interoperability Tools, you go to Assign, and then you search for the relevant object that you're looking for. But a quicker way to do that, and this is actually a Revit tip as well, is to set up a keyboard shortcut for your classification system. So I'm just going to go to File, I'm going to go to Options, go to User Interface, Customize Keyboard Shortcuts, and on your filter, just drop down BIM Interoperability Tools. Then I'm just going to go to Assign, and in Assign, what I'm going to do is just type in AC. So whenever I type that in on the keyboard, it will automatically bring up the Classification Manager. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select maybe this curtain wall here, just click on it once, and I'm going to type in AC, and it brings up your Classification Manager for all of your objects there. Now I can either browse this the same way I did with the other ones, or in fact I can just type in, maybe I've got some sort of curtain walling system in here. Curtain walling system, assign that to my particular object, hit close, and then just check within there. Curtain walling system has been applied, the description, and the SS number as well has been applied there. The next tip I want to give you sits under the model checker interface. So in the model checker toolbar, you'll see that you have model checker, you've got setup, run, view report, and help and about. And then we also have the configurator under launch as well. So the configurator is where you set up how your model checks run and what type of elements you want checked and how you want them checked. So just for example, you can check file names. You can check if the file name matches a certain standard, such as your ISO 19650 standard or your BS 1192. You can check or report on a file size, different keynotes, the size of families, line styles, linking CAD, even the project coordinates. And these are all different types of checks that you can put together into one check set, and you can pick and choose which ones you want. So the first thing that I want to dive into on the model checker configuration is actually creating your own checks using the Wizard Check Builder. So I'm just going to go into Wizard Check Builder. So the first thing when you're presented with this screen, you'll want to create a blank model checker, blank file, and I'm just going to call this, so I actually have one that I'm going to overwrite. So open, that's fine. I've got one saved in my documents here. I've just called it check type 1. So I'm going to replace that and call that yes. That's fine. Check type 1, just click OK on that. So I'm just going to overwrite that. This one is also going to reside in there. I'm going to call this check type 1A. I can put in my name here. And this can reside on your central server, and this will be the series of check sets of all of those different options. using something like the Wizard Check Builder. So under this, you get 4 options in the Wizard Check. So this check will fail if it finds matching elements. So why would you want to find matching elements? So for example, if you know that there's a door type in your project that should not be in that project, you can search for it and automatically that check will fail on your project. So the purpose of these is that they can reside on a central server, and the designers and other people on the project are able to use these check sets that you've already created, either as a BIM manager or whatever your particular role is on a project. So this check will fail if it finds matching elements, or this check will fail if it does not find matching elements. And similar, this check will count matching elements, so getting you a quantity, and this check will list matching elements. So what I want to do is list matching elements, and what I'm actually going to do is check for the windows and doors that don't have a classification code applied to them under the Uniclass settings. But this could also be a fire rating, it could be a material that you're checking that you do or don't want in your project. So matching elements, and I want to do it under architectural elements because I know my classification code is applied to my doors and windows, for example. So I'm looking for architectural elements. So I can select in here. So I'm just going to choose windows and doors, for example. I could choose everything else to check the uni class if I wanted. So I'm going to go to continue, and I want to add some filters on the elements in the categories that I select. So I want to include certain parameters within my project, and those parameters that I want to choose are the uni class parameters. So I could also choose by phase or by host, by family name, by level. So this is all very generic, as you can imagine, because you're creating your custom checks. I'm just going to do custom parameter. I've copied in my classification uniclass description. So is empty. So I want to add that to my list. I'm going to hit continue. So if the uniclass description is empty, I want to know what those objects are. So this would be as opposed to running the schedule checker that we saw in the previous tip. So I'm done with this check and ready to name it. So I want to check SS check uni. Sorry, that was SS description uniclass. So I'm just so I know when I come back to it. You can put in the description if you want. So that's fine. I'm going to hit save on that, and now I'm just going to go down to my check set structure, and you will find your custom created checks in here on the right hand side. Now if I go to drag that, it won't allow me to put it into my structure. What I need to do is create a heading and a section, and then your check will go in there once you drag them across. So that will fall under that. I'm going to call this heading, I'm actually going to call it uniclass check. And then my subheading is going to be door and window. So door and window check within my uniclass. Save on that. Uniclass check. Save, press save. So now all I'm going to do, make sure that's saved. So this particular check, I can add multiple checks under here as well. Whether I have a different one for doors, for windows, for uniclass description, for uniclass number. I could even check the window height or the window width if I wanted to check some sort of building regulation, for example. That can all be part of this check set structure. And any custom check sets that you create or checks will appear here, and you just need to bring them into your check set structure here on the left hand side. So I'm just going to close that. Now what I'm going to do is go into my setup and make sure that that particular one, door and window check, is selected. That's fine. Close that, and now I'm going to just run that particular check. Select that, run report. That will run a check on that. Then it will say that the uniclass is required, and it's listing out every single item that doesn't have a uniclass description applied to it. I can then output that to an Excel file if I want, and it will bring out the individual list items. Click yes on that, and it will automatically open it in the background. And there we have every single object that doesn't have a uniclass classification applied to it. So the next tip I want to show you here today is again using the model checker configuration, but this time we're going to use the pre-built check sets. So I'm going to go into BIM Interoperability Tools, go to my Launch Configurator, and we're just going to go down to pre-built checks. So we're just going to use some of the pre-built checks that have come installed with BIM Interoperability Tools, and this saves you creating the custom ones from scratch. So what we're going to check here, we're going to check phase elements. So that's pre-built. This will list the number of elements created on each phase of a project. That's fine. Click OK, add that. What else are we going to check? We're going to check object styles, Revit version. We can check the Revit version if we've got linked projects in there, making sure we're complying with the project standard. Work sets, warning count. We can check the number of warnings. What else have we got here? Phase elements is in. Linked CAD. Keynotes, largest family, file size. I want to check the file size. Click OK. And then what we're just going to hit save on that. So it's going to ask me what do you want to save it as. I'm actually going to overwrite this one just called check type 2. Hit save. Yes. So that's going to save that as a check set. Now what I do is go into my check set structure, and we can see again it's empty. And similar, you always have to have a heading and you always have to have a section in order to add your different checks. So a check needs to be under a section. I can create separate sections and separate headings if I want for these, but for now I'm just going to keep them all the same. So these are all different checks that will be performed within the project. Just going to hit save on this one. Save on this, then hit close. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into my model checker, just go to setup. What I want to do now is make sure that I'm linked into the correct one, which is I just created, check type 2. Click open on that, click OK. So we can see here, if I in fact click on this section, I can enable and disable what actually gets checked. Now in the background, I can also make these different settings. So this is what your user will see, either your technician or your designer who is using Revit, who is performing these checks. These are the options they will see. So I'm just going to hit save on that, save and close, and going to go to run report. So I've got my models there. I can also add different models if I want, link in various models. If you've got, different discipline models or different project models you want to run the same test on, you can also do that there. So I'm just going to hit run report. So run report, those 3 checks have been created. So it's giving me the file size of this file. It's 18 megabytes. Revit version, it tells me exact version of that for compatibility issues. And then it also is giving me the count of phase elements as well. So there's a phase called working drawings, and there's 548 elements on that particular phase as well. And then again, similar to the last one, I can export this into an Excel spreadsheet if I want, if it needs to be saved into some sort of report or into your common data environment. I can completely export this as a recording of the check being performed as well. So the next tip I want to give you here today, again on the model checker configuration, is using the pre-made complete check sets. So I'm going to go into model checker here. I'm going to go straight to setup. So what I'm actually going to go to is just going to go to cancel on that for a moment. Sorry, go back into setup, go to open on that. So if you go down to public library, you can see there's been a series of checks that actually come pre-installed with it as well. There's one called Model Health Dashboard Sample, and this is quite a useful one. And you've also got one called Revit 2021 Best Practices. So I'm just going to click OK on that. What I can do then is I can run a report on that, and it will check all of these elements that appear here. But what I can actually do, I can actually customize these as well to save you building them from scratch as well. So I can go into Launch Configurator. I can just go into Open as well here. I can go into Revit 2021. And this just allows me to use this, but to edit it in a way that suits my project, for example. So I can go into the structure of, for example, I can go into Views, and maybe I don't want this particular views, which counts of all views in the model. And views typically do not impact model size, but we want to check them, but we may want to remove that from the check. I can X that, hit OK on that, and you can see it will automatically jump to unused check, so it will be there for later use. Maybe I want to go into model elements, or for example, maybe I don't want any MEP items to be checked because I'm the architect, for example. Same for structure, I can remove all of those. And I can check other elements or uncheck elements, and also add other items to that. So once I hit save on that, I'll hit save as on that just to create a new one. It doesn't allow you to overwrite it. I'm just going to call that 21B, hit save on that, hit close. Then again, go into my setup, go to open. just navigate to where that is saved, Revit 21B. That's the one, open, click OK. And this is the new edited one. Now I can now run this as a report, same way I did with my previous ones. Just go to run, just hit run, and I can see this is going to use the Revit best model practices. Hit run report. That will take a few minutes if it's a larger check set that you're running, and then you can view the report either in HTML or even in an Excel spreadsheet as well. Next, we're going to look at the Cobie extension for Revit and how that works. So what we have here is a Cobie spreadsheet you may be familiar with, which can be a requested or a required output of a BIM project. And it outputs with a series of tabs in an arranged format, and that's under the Cobie standard. So the BIM interoperability tools also carries the plugin for formatting this information from your Revit objects into this spreadsheet that you see in front of you here. So in order to organize that and to use what are already your Revit parameters and to populate them into your Cobie information, there are a couple of steps that you're able to take. So first off, your Cobie extension is found up here, and you've got some options: set up family, set up projects. When you go to set up project, it gives you a couple of different options. You can choose US or UK locality, different formats, your different area measurements, stuff like that. Other things that you're also able to do is customize components and how the names transfer into the spreadsheet. So for example, this particular spreadsheet, the name of the component, which in this case is a window, it's Windows underscore and there's a number. So it is pulling that information from Revit parameters that already exist within your object. So the reason for that is that you're not recreating Cobie information. You're able to just pull it from Revit parameters. So this is a new component parameter or name builder that I've created. So I wanted to take the Revit category, I wanted to take the mark object, and I want to take a level name, and I want that to populate it into the component name for the Cobie spreadsheet. So once I hit save on that, save and close, that's just going to update. Then the next thing I just go to update, hit apply and close on that. Once I'm happy with everything I see, hit apply and close on that. Then if I just select this window here, we can see that the Cobie component name has not yet updated, and the reason for that is because I am going to output this into a spreadsheet. I'm just going to close this spreadsheet, old spreadsheet, create spreadsheet. That's fine, just open file, and this is your Cobie data. If I go to component, I should be able to see that my window name is named as per level as well. And we can see here now that that name has been appended with the level afterwards. This could also be your window tag number, for example, but I suppose the purpose of showing this is that you're able to customize the Cobie naming from your existing Revit parameters. So you should definitely implement that in order to avoid any duplication of information. If I go back into the Revit project, for example, if I select a particular window, I can also see that that naming has also been automated to include the level 3, the number that it's pulling from the mark, and then it's pulling the category windows to name that. And you can do the same for tag number, area and length, and all of these should be related to parameters as much as is possible to populate your Cobie spreadsheet. The next tip I'm going to show you is again using the Cobie extension, but I'm going to show you how to do something called map parameters. So if you go into setup project, go into parameter mappings, and this will give you a list of all the Cobie parameters that are populated into your Revit objects. And at the setup stage of your Cobie extension, these particular parameters are applied to every component in your project. Therefore, these are all Cobie compliant parameters essentially. So another way to map parameters, for example, if I wanted to, so component, I'm just going to reset this one. So component tag number, as I can see here on this window, component tag number, if I wanted that to auto populate with the mark, what I would do is in fact go to tag number, I would drop down this box, I would then go to mark, choose the mark tag. So that's going to pull this mark parameter. So it's going to populate number 15 into tag number in here. Just going to save and close that, click OK. Once I then update my model, that particular parameter will be up. You can see now that tag number has updated with the same as the mark code, and this can be any sort of tag number with numbers or any sort of prefix on it as well. The final tip we're going to cover today using the Cobie extension as part of the BIM interoperability tools is creating your output Cobie spreadsheet. So to create the actual spreadsheet after you've mapped all your parameters and inputted your correct parameters and correct parameter names into your components and your objects, you're able to then output that as a spreadsheet. So you can simply just go to create spreadsheet after you've finished those steps, and you can choose what you want to output. Now you can choose to create a new file, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to close this one here in the background. You can choose to create a new file where you want that to be placed, and then just create spreadsheet. So that just takes a few moments depending on many objects, and then you can simply just open file, and that will bring you to the complete open spreadsheet. All of these tabs have been populated based on the settings entered in the Cobie extension tool, and here are all of your objects, including windows, walls, and anything else that you've selected to have outputted to your Cobie file as well. Now, if you need to then update this information for whatever reason, you can close that, close this again, go back into my create spreadsheet. You can in fact append new information to that spreadsheet as well. So you can update information on your objects, just create spreadsheet, and be sure that you have append selected, and that will append any sort of new information that has changed across your project as well.
Thank you, Iqbal. Thank you, everybody. Happy to take any questions now.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much, John. So yeah, we had a few questions in place. One we had during the talk was, we probably need to go into this a bit more detail. The classification manager and all these tools, essentially the use of it for people facing projects. So is it requirement for BIM projects in particular, as per the ISO 19650, or is it something that's beneficial to do even though it's not required? I wanted to go into a bit more detail about that if possible.
Okay, so classification on BIM level 2, or now BIM framework projects, which is now known as, some sort of classification is required, yes. So the BIM interoperability toolbar only it assists you in putting that information together. It just makes it a bit easier. You don't have to use that plugin by any means. You know, people may have other methods of doing it, but if you're doing it from inside Revit, it is one of the most efficient ways, purely because you can link the parameters, your Revit parameters, to the actual classification parameters.
Okay, great. So a couple of, just going on from that, it's I think it's just people are getting confused. Do we need to do it? Is it just, say, let's say you're working for a client who's supposed to be doing BIM level 2, but in practice really doesn't know the benefits of bringing that to their business? Is that more a deeper question, or is that stuff related to this classification?
It probably is a deeper question, but I'm happy to answer it. And like this will, it varies on project. Has the client specified a classification system on the project? In a lot of cases on BIM level 2 projects, the client or your employer's information requirements will have specified some classification system. So it will depend on the project, and it should have been specified somewhere. If you're working to the ISO 19650 using the UK annex, you are required to use a classification system, yes.
Okay, you are required, yeah. And I think just going to people who are asking that question, Marie in particular, it comes to how you're sharing your model out. So you're sharing your project out, correct? So if you've got all that information, it's much easier to share out with other people who need that information at a later date, or even they need it now.
Exactly, particularly when it goes to the facility manager guys. So if they're using Cobie sheets or some sort of an Excel format,
Yeah.
because if it's a classification system is, it's an agreed standard. So they know by the classification code exactly what something is. So it's a common language that relates to the objects or the information in a model.
Yeah, so that's why it's important. You're right, especially when it comes to facilities management at the end. Just passing a project over can be a headache, and just having those in place makes it 10 times more easier for both parties. Great, thanks for that. We've got a question here. Is there a way to feed a selection set of several elements in order to input the parameter values instead of going through each component one by one? So is there a mass selection tool? Can you feed in, can you put in, I don't know, can you import any Excel spreadsheets in there to bring your data in?
You certainly can. There are actually Dynamo scripts that you're able to map to certain, just by renaming parameters. That could be one potential workflow. It depends on the category, but in a lot of cases, if you're just looking at classification, yes, you can select all and update them at the same time. If they have all the same classification, if it's all windows or all pieces of.
If it's all one classification, you can do it at the same time.
Exactly,
yeah.
yes. And if it's a type parameter, obviously it reflects in every instance then as well.
That's true. Yeah. Thanks for that. These interoperability checks are available in older versions of Revit, aren't they? I believe you just got to download it. It's a separate extension, I believe, isn't it? It's not just in Revit 2021.
Yeah, as far as I know, it comes pre-installed with the last 3 or 4 versions, but
Yeah.
even at that, like it goes back to at least version 2017.
Yeah, I've seen it there as well.
If you go onto the BIM Interoperability Tools.com, which is an Autodesk website, it has the previous versions there if you need to access them for whatever reason.
I'll put that in the link, BIM in interoperabilitytools.com. Yeah. So we had a question from Colin. Which facilities management system or software is compatible with Cobie? Could be a lot.
To be honest, FM systems compatible with Cobie. I'm not sure. I don't cover FM systems, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I would imagine it's quite broad though, considering.
Yeah, like Cobie is a fairly it's a fairly common handover standard or format as well. So I expect there's several of them out there anyway.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for that. Colin, I'll try and get you some information about that as well in an email later on. Any other questions there? Please post them in the Q&A box. I sent this to us. Now looks like we've caught up with those. So yeah, I like this summary at the end. Just the steps that you want to use from the left side to the right side to make sure your model is up to date with information. And I think the really interesting one was the model checker, so you can check when your model is you said it was optimally performed, so make sure it is all clean. Make sure it was all set up correctly with the check sets that you can put in. Looks like we're okay.
Sorry,
no other questions at the moment. If we're waiting for a couple more people, we will just. I just want to bring you into your attention to actually we're doing another webinar in September on the 2nd and 3rd of September, and it's for people who are also wondering about the benefits of moving to BIM and having to adhere to BIM requirements, etc. We're doing another webinar where you will learn from our technical consultants how businesses have successfully made the transition from 2D to BIM and what you need to consider to do the same. And it's the 2-part webinar. One is on the 2nd of September, one is on the 3rd of September. On the 3rd of September, we're going to have a practical session on how you can use Autodesk, Revit and BIM 360 to highlight, to make the transition from 2D to BIM. So if that's interesting, I'll post a link in the chat box now for you. And also you'll probably get an email come through to you guys at a later stage. And please do look out for emails to register to our other webinars as they come along when they're announced. I think we're all good. I think you wowed them, Jonathan. No other questions at the moment. If you do have any questions, just send it over to our details there, support@cadpoint.co.uk, or any other queries you may have. We're happy to answer those. I think we'll probably call it a day.
Perfect. Thank you everybody for your time. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, have a nice day. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.